Hey, everybody, I'm really excited to introduce to you Amanda. I've known Amanda for about 5 years now,
Hmm.
and I've even worked for her a little bit. I've done some crafts. I don't know if
That's
crafts.
right.
I don't think I've done
Yes.
any recipes, but
I don't think
so
so,
I'm.
but
I don't think recipes. I think yeah, just crafts. I can
yeah.
remember a few projects specifically
Yes.
that I
Yeah.
love. They were
Uh-huh.
so fun. And so, Amanda, can you start just by sharing a little bit about you and your blog and how long you've been blogging?
Sure. Well, I started in 1997, which people are like, what? But it wasn't a blog because blogs weren't a thing yet. So I had a website for 10 years and then I sold that website. So in '07, there was a lot of buzz about blogs. It was becoming a thing. I had
Hmm.
heard it, but I didn't really even know what they were because I had been, writing HTML, doing everything kind of raw, right?
Okay.
So when I found out that you could build a blog like with an editor, I was like, what? WordPress is a thing. So anyway, but yeah, I started my blog after I sold the website. And blogs have been around a few years, I think. It was kind of pretty new still, so it was great to be able to get in at the ground floor, basically,
Yeah.
of blogging. And since I already had the experience with it, treating it as a business, I think I had an advantage over some others where, a lot of people were getting flack for putting ads on their site, that kind of thing. Where I started from the very beginning, I didn't have any traffic and I had ads on my site just because,
Oh, wow.
yeah,
Is
I put
there?
them up immediately. There was no complaining about, I can't believe you added ads. That just did not happen because mine were always there. So,
Okay.
you know,
Wow. I didn't know
yeah,
you could
because with
add ads from the very beginning.
well, you
Like,
can't do it with somebody like Mediavine or AdThrive, but you could do it with Google,
oh, right.
Google Ads. So
Got
so
it.
that's what I had in the beginning. Yeah. So
Wow. And
plus I
what
just
blog?
had some of my own things, like
Yeah.
I would build ads for, well, you don't want to get into all that, but I would build ads for my different sections of my site to kind of push people, just to kind of have placeholders.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah.
so
And
anyway,
what kind of
but
blog was that? Was that a food blog? Was that a craft blog?
well, I actually started the craft blog first, and
Okay.
I was doing both in one. I just kind of threw a few recipes in here and there where I was like, oh, I made this cake today, or, this is what we had
Yeah.
for dinner, that kind of thing. But most of it was crafting. And then eventually I'm like, I was adding more and more recipes, and I thought, I should probably just have a separate blog for this. So that's when that started. I think I started the food blog maybe 6 or 8 months after I started the craft blog.
Oh,
And now the food blog is you know, the craft blog is secondary. So
okay. And
this
so your
point,
food blog is your bread and butter,
yeah, yeah.
basically,
I mean,
literally.
yeah, the craft blog makes money, but it's not, it's nowhere near it's a nice secondary income,
Okay.
that I
So
don't just
I
lots
bet you're like, I'm so glad I started that food blog.
Yes.
Right? When you did too. Oh
Right.
my
Well,
gosh.
everybody's got to eat, not everybody knows how to craft and or wants
Right.
to or has a desire. So people don't have the desire to cook either, but they have to do it. Some
That's
people,
right. That's so true.
so
Because
it's a
so do you
necessity.
you see like out of the two, it's the food blogger or the food blog is what brings in the most traffic, the most income from ads,
Absolutely.
just because, like you said, only is craft is niche because not everybody is
Right.
going to want to craft, but
Right.
everybody has to eat,
Everybody's got to
and
eat. Yeah.
yeah, that's something I think that uh,
Yeah. I feel like there's got to be a blog out there with that as their tagline. Everybody's got to
everybody's
eat.
okay, new business idea, new blog idea, right?
Right.
Everybody's got to eat because it is really true, and that's something I think that we have seen like through the pandemic, right? Where
Right.
blogs. So did you see a huge spike in
I
traffic?
did. I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, because people were staying at home. Like my Italian bread recipe is number one on Google, and it really helped keep it there. I think it might have been number two or number three when the pandemic
Mhm.
hit, and then it really got pushed forward because people were trying it and going, "Oh my God, this is easiest and the best recipe ever. And so it just kept getting tons and tons of 5-star reviews, and people just loved it, and they were passing it around, and people were posting it and tagging me. And so it was a really big thing. And then, things like casseroles and things that people started cooking. They were bored. They're like, I'm at home now. And I'm not used to being at home, used to being in the office. They get their work done at night or whatever. So they're like, I'm going to make a loaf of bread, or I'm going to make this cake. So yeah, it really did give me a nice boost. Luckily, nothing fell off after that.
Yeah.
I mean, it dropped a little bit because it was insane, but yeah, that was a very nice boost for my business.
People wonder about the sustainability of blogging, right? Because we saw,
Right.
and especially through a recession, well, how is blogging going to hold up during a recession? And it's like, well, food blogging, we've seen through 2020 was just a little glimpse, but for this even more, my family, we don't eat out a lot anymore because of how expensive it is. And so I am getting all of my recipes from blogs. And so when you think about it that way, it's like, okay, no, this makes sense that this is would be a sustainable thing, a market that is not going anywhere.
Absolutely.
It's gonna, like any market, it's gonna ebb and flow, and it might have it might ebb and flow throughout the year.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, I would say that it's a solid market that's still fairly new and growing.
Yeah, I agree. People, and it's from the beginning of time, people have needed to eat. So it's a good business to be in. However, much more competitive now than it was when I started. So
sure.
So starting a blog now is a lot harder, So diving in with recipe development and with photography is a great way to get into it and make money fast or right away.
Yeah. We have, several bloggers who have joined Pretty Focused to start making money as they have grown their blog. They're like, well, I'm going to start working with those already established bloggers. And then it gives them a chance to kind of learn and grow from people around them and just kind of observe how the industry works. And they're able to pick up on things. They're able to pick up on maybe resources that are available to them so they can continue to keep growing their blog. And so we've had students who have been like, I love this. I actually want to do the blogging, and they've started their blogs, and that's been really cool to see too. So do you, in your experience, whenever you started blogging, there had to have come a point where you're like, I can't do this on my own anymore. Yeah, or I guess maybe I should say, did you start out on your own, or did you start out asking people to help you? What was that like?
So I was for sure on my own, because of course it started as it was really when I first started the blog, I was like, okay, I know I can make this a business, but let's just dive in, So I just started doing the crafts, and then I started making more recipes. And but eventually, yes, it did get to a point where I was like, I can't do it all. I'm a very analytical person, so I like to look at the analytics of the blog and see where the traffic is coming from and see how I can optimize on that. I'm very much like that, but also I'm very creative. So that was kind of a struggle for me to have the math brain and the creative brain, competing with each other almost. And I'm like, I can't do all of this, So, I was maybe posting, and I was very sporadic. Like, I'll post a recipe here just when I got it done. It wasn't, there was no schedule, there was no content calendar, anything like that. It was just, I'll post it when I can. But as it started getting more and more popular and I was really enjoying it, then I felt like I need to, if I want to make money, I have to spend money. And so I had to start bringing people in, and I did it for quite a while by myself. I would say probably 4 years by myself, maybe even more, maybe 5. Gosh, maybe it was even longer than that. I'm trying to think, because 2007, we're in 2023. I don't know. It's probably been I didn't really have to look back, but it's probably been the last 10 years that I've had people on a team, I really can't remember, but yeah, I did. I had to start bringing in, you had to look at first of all, what you really like to do the most, right? That's what I did. I was like, well, at that point in time, what did I really want to do the most? And I wanted to take some of those years and years of recipes and get better pictures. So that's kind of what I saw the competition out there. I saw that there was a lot of bloggers, shooting some really amazing photos, and mine were pretty good, but I didn't feel like they were amazing. So I did hop off and go to school about 5, 6 years ago, and went to photography school just to kind of, refresh myself and everything. But I also had started hiring people um, to come in and help. I had VAs. I think that's what it started with, was hiring VAs and having them kind of do the little stuff that I couldn't keep up with. But eventually I was like, I want to post more often on the blog. And the only way to do that for a 1-person or a 2-person team was to hire somebody else to help me create recipes, or to take better pictures of my older ones so I could focus on newer ones. So that's kind of how that started.
Well, I'm sure for the first 5 years, because blogging was so new, where would you have even gone to find people
There wasn't.
to work for you?
Right.
Were there such a thing as VAs, or at least,
Right.
VAs who knew the blogging world, because you're
Right.
still learning it yourself. So how in the world, it was probably a lot of bloggers just helping other bloggers, right?
Right. Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I want to say that's, from my observations, maybe that's how it started. And then
Yeah. And I
they
do
find
believe
their
that-
strengths. They
Yeah.
stop blogging because they enjoy the analytical or helping others. I don't know. I'm just kind of,
Right. Everyone kind of
Yeah.
falls into their what they really like to do. And I think you're right there, and I think it kind of started with, is there anybody out there that knows anyone that wants to do some data entry? Or, it was kind of like that. Oh, my sister, love it. That's how it developed.
Yeah.
And eventually, or I'd have like a craft blogger that'd be like, oh, well, I actually wouldn't mind, doing something. And so that's kind of how it happened. Or people that wanted to post on Facebook for me, or,
Yeah.
but yeah,
And
that's,
now, I
it's a
mean,
full-on business for VAs and all that stuff.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like a thing now.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many groups where you can go and find
Mhm.
VAs and writers
Mhm.
and social media people and photographers and
Right.
recipe
Yeah.
developers and all of that stuff.
One of my VAs that I've had for a few years is actually from a course that's similar to yours. It's a VA course. It's a business
Oh,
VA
yeah.
course. And that's how
Okay.
I got her. So
Yeah.
it's definitely a full-on business now, an industry.
It's been really cool to, for Pretty Focus to be part of this
Right.
growing industry, and
Yeah.
how it's shaped. So do you hire photographers, or have you hired photographers?
Yeah. So actually, for a while, up until 2 years ago, I was just, my focus was completely on the computer end of it. It was on the analytics and everything. And so I'm like, if I want new content, then I have to have photographers. So I would say 5 or 6 years ago, maybe even more, I started hiring photographers to do things. And like I said, up until 2 years ago, I had photographers doing everything for me, all my content. And I was publishing maybe 4 or 5 times a week, I think. So I was purchasing from groups, and I had specific photographers that just worked, or that worked for me, that I had, regular people every month. And it wasn't until 2 years ago when Antoine and I started, doing a lot of the recipes. We do still have 3 different recipe developers / photographers that work for us. And each of them does 2 or 3 per month.
How many photographers was that you said?
So we have 3 regular photographers on our,
Okay.
on our
That-
team. When I say regular, I mean they're monthly. Every
Okay.
month.
And they each do 3. So you're hiring out 9 additional
Well,
recipes, right?
We have, let me see, if it does 2, 3, that's 5, 6, 7. I have 7 recipes a month coming from 3 different photographers. One of them
Okay.
does 3, and the other 2 do 2 per month.
Okay.
And then I actually have someone who just came back. She was on my team before and took a break And then she came, I believe she's pretty focused also. And she came back just recently and started doing recreations for me again. So I'm super
Oh,
excited to have
nice.
her back. Yeah, very excited
Yeah,
to have her back.
nice.
Yeah.
So, where did you find your photographers?
Well, when I was buying stuff out of the groups,
Yeah.
there's one woman that does 2 recipes a month for me that I found in one of those groups.
Okay.
And then the other two are pretty focused photographers.
Okay. Okay.
So, and I found them in there. And, as you know, I'm good friends with Stephanie. And so I would always reach out to her or to you and be like, I need somebody else. I'm one of those people that I like longevity. I like someone who's going to stay with me. And I realize that's not a forever thing, but I really hate to bring on new people because it's such a process. So once I get
Right.
someone, I try to really keep them.
Yeah.
So the people that have been with me for a while, which is great. I
Yeah,
love that.
that
Plus,
is
then
good.
they learn your style you know, and they come to know what you are looking for as a blogger.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I love that. Um, I love that. So I love that that photographer was able to come back to you. Did she like reach back out to you and was like, "Hey, I'm
No,
back
she had told
again,"
me
or
no, I kept bothering her.
okay.
Because she had said she might come back in about a year. She had some things she had to work out. And so I had reached out to her a few months ago, and she's like, actually, I think she did reach out to me once and said, hey, I'm probably going to be getting back into it in the next few weeks. I was like, great, let me know. And I didn't hear from her for 2 months. So I was like, hey, what's going on? So it was kind of that, we
Okay.
both followed up with each other.
Nice.
But yeah, once I got her back, and I'm like, yeah, I'm so glad you're back.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
What has been easy for you as a blogger? Like whenever or I guess I should say, has working with pretty focused students or grads made your like job a little bit easier as a blogger because they're trained
Right.
in the general sense? I mean, there's going to be some tailoring to different, blogs
Yeah.
and your specific style, but has
Yeah.
has that been helpful for you having a community like the Buyers Club?
Yes, I would say yes. And to be honest, I don't really use the Buyers Club much. I stopped purchasing recipes. And when I say this, it's because I had trouble with some of the recipes I bought, but they weren't from the Buyers Club. It was from a
Oh,
different Facebook group. I've had a couple of things come back and bite me in the butt, like 3 recipes this year where they're 2 years old and this doesn't work. And then I'm having to pay a recipe tester because I didn't try it myself, you know?
mm,
So that's a kind of a tough thing. When you're putting up 7 new recipes every week, it's really hard. And plus we're doing 5 to 6 recipes every week ourselves. It's really hard to test all the ones. You have to have
mm,
someone you can trust, and so I
absolutely.
stopped purchasing because I had way too many people that I was getting stuff from, and while the pictures looked great, the recipe might not necessarily have been good. And so for me, I stick with the regular, which is also why I'm really happy that you have the recipe development coming up in Pretty Focus, because I probably could wait until later to say this, but recipe writing is extremely important to me.
Mhm.
Extremely. People compliment my blog all the time because they find my recipes very easy to follow. The instructions are written well. When they make it, they can see the step-by-step photos. They just tell me your recipes are so easy to follow. So that means that when we're writing it, we're doing something right. And I need a
Mhm.
photographer that can do that. And not all of them can. You know,
Yeah.
I had a regular that her recipe writing skills were just horrendous. I don't know. Hopefully they're improved by now, but I had to, sever that tie.
Oh, that's
My
unfortunate. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because my editorial manager was like, it's taking me forever to write these recipes. It's too much. So
Wow.
yeah, so it's a
So for
really
you,
important skill to have.
yeah. So what I'm hearing from you is that, I mean, so you don't purchase, one-offs, but you do you do have your own team that's helping you develop recipes, and the
Yes,
photographers are helping you
yes,
develop recipes. So what I'm hearing from
yes.
you is just how important it is that if you are going for, so if you are a photographer, you are wanting to develop recipes, that training in, our selling exclusives class or the recipe development course, that training in recipe development is so important.
It's
Um,
absolutely imperative.
it
Absolutely.
is, yes. I mean, because like you
The
said, you take great
reputation
photos.
of a blog, people can be drawn in by beautiful pictures.
Mhm.
But if these people can't make the recipe because your instructions are too hard to follow, if they're incomplete, if you forget ingredients or whatever the case may be, that doesn't help the blogger at all. And a blogger will eventually drop you, like I did with that one, because you just can't. I need to be able to trust somebody. I'm paying you to develop a recipe for me and to take beautiful pictures of it. So yes, it's wonderful to draw somebody in with beautiful pictures that make your mouth water. But
Right.
if it's not a success when somebody makes it in their kitchen, then those pictures are worthless.
Mhm. Or
You
even if
know?
it's a great recipe, right? And maybe the recipe works, but how it's communicated is confusing,
Yes,
right? And so I think
absolutely.
that's a great I think that's a really great point to bring up and for just people to be aware of how important that is. If that's the route you want to get into,
Right.
then having that additional training and not just, jumping into it because you love coming up with recipes on the weekends and it's just something that brings you joy. There is a technical aspect that goes into it, and that's what Pretty
Absolutely.
Focused, is we train recipe developers and photographers. And it's another reason why, like, we have a graduation system set up for each of
Hmm.
those, and we want people to go through the right channels because
Correct.
bloggers come
Yeah.
because people are trained.
Right.
Sounds like you've been burned by that in the
I
past.
have. I
And
definitely
so
have. And it's a
that's why
learning experience.
whenever people ask us if they can, like, I've been a photographer for 20 years, can I just join your buyers club? I'm like, stop.
No,
I
you may not.
love that you have been a photographer for 20 years. That is amazing. I would
Right.
love to hear all of your stories, but
Yeah.
you were not
There's an
trained to work with
aspect.
food bloggers. There's
Right.
an
Right.
aspect that comes
I,
along with it,
yeah.
and that's
And
really important to us.
I would say something that even I've had to, learn over the years is that not everyone, in fact, there's a much larger percentage of people that don't actually like to cook, but they cook because they need to, because they have to feed
Mhm.
their children and it's too expensive to eat out every night. And
Yep.
so you really have to remember that because most people, when they come looking for the recipe, they need to understand the steps. It needs to be clear. I mean, you can't believe some of the questions that you get. Do I need to drain this? If you don't say drained, there's just so many things, so many aspects of a recipe that have to be clear as as a bell.
Yeah.
They absolutely have to be because people are there to follow. There's a lot of people that can't. They don't know how to throw them. Just throw a little bit of this in here and throw a little bit in there. We do this because we love to cook or we love to bake or both, right? And this is why
Mhm.
people get into food photography because they're taking something they love and showing it to the world. But you have to remember that the world you're showing it to probably doesn't love it.
Mm.
And so it's a need for them. So if you're providing something that's for someone that needs something, you got to provide it clearly and precisely and as easily as possible.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great perspective because, one thing that we talk about inside of Pretty Focus is the reader's journey. Because as
Mhm.
photographers, it's like we have to not, we're not, you and I are working together to serve a bigger audience. Like, I
Right.
am not just here to serve you, we are here to serve readers, right? And
Yes.
you nailed that, like, I love to cook, it makes
Right.
sense to me.
Right.
And so, but who is what is that end result? It's the reader that
Right.
doesn't know how to cook. It's the
Right.
reader who's like, I need a pantry staple recipe
Yeah.
that is going to come together fast.
Right.
And I think whenever you really have to understand who the reader is. And that's why we tell people,
Exactly.
start looking, like, if somebody reaches out to you, a blogger reaches out to you, or you're trying to figure out, if you would be a good fit, or you want to start like selling recipes, go and look at some of the blogs you follow and just get an idea
Mhm.
of who their audience is.
Yeah.
You know
Read the
what? You might
comments.
read yeah, absolutely. Read
It's a
the
great
comments.
that is a great way to get a feel for, and the audience is different on some blog posts, you know,
Yep.
like my Italian bread has a ton of comments, but it's because it's people that find me from Google. What about the people that come from Facebook? You know, there's a
Mm,
different, or people that are your newsletter subscribers. Your newsletter
right.
subscribers already know your blog, right? Someone who
Right.
comes from Google might have some snide comment to leave because they're just somebody who's never been there before, never visited your blog, you know, they just want a recipe.
Yeah.
So there is a different audience for everyone. But
Hmm.
yes, like I know my audience are usually older, you know, they're into casseroles and, you know, potluck salads and easy desserts. So yeah, I have a general, like if I were to put up some intricate cake recipe, it might be cool, but it's probably not going to, you know, it's probably not going to be well received by my audience.
Mm,
You know, it just, you got
yeah.
to know who you're, like you said. So that's why I say read the comments. Sometimes you can really tell, you know,
Yeah. That's really
what
good
that audience
advice.
is like. So,
Yeah. That's really good advice. So I would say my next question was going to be like, what advice do you have for people looking to start working with food bloggers? But I think that what we just talked about really summarizes that, is that if you want to start, first of all, make sure your photography is good,
yeah,
right?
yeah, right.
Because with how, as you said, 5 years ago or whenever that was that you took a photography course, you noticed that your competition's photography
Hmm.
had elevated, right? And you were like, I have to match them. Well,
Right.
that's only growing. That's you
Hmm.
know what I mean? So aside from a recipe that's really well executed and well written, if you're selling, I should say,
Right.
that's well executed and well written, is photos are so is good photos and quality photos are so important to you. Um, and you're going to be looking for a certain level of work. You have a certain expectation level, right, of
Right.
what photos should look like. Now if
Right.
you're hiring somebody to do recreations, they need to be able to properly execute the recipe
Right.
and make it look good, right?
Yeah.
And then
Right.
also you take really great photos of that as well, because again, that
Yes.
expectation for photography is
Yeah.
there.
I do want to throw this in simply because we talked about the Buyers Club. We talked about me purchasing recipes and getting burned, not through the Buyers Club, but, you know, the few recipes that kind of bombed this year after being up on the blog for a couple of years. I went back to those photographers. I keep my emails, and I went back to that email where they sent me the files, and I said, "Hey, you know, blah blah blah, whatever the problem was," and they didn't have an answer for me. You need to keep highly detailed notes when you write your recipes. You know,
Mm.
um, I don't. It had something to do with, like, they completely missed an ingredient, yet it was in the, you know, list, but it wasn't in the.
Mm. The
I'm not speaking right.
instructions.
Wasn't in the instructions. Thank you. Or
Yeah.
something looked weird in the step photos and didn't match what the written recipe said. You know, but well, I'm not sure. And I'd say, how much did this weigh? I'm not sure. It was this much. That's another thing. You know, cups, weight, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
like a cucumber, how cucumbers come like this, they come like this, they come like that. So you can't, you know what I mean? Like, we weigh everything now, and we measure it in cups when we're done with the recipe. Like if it's a skillet meal, I take it all out and I measure it in cups. How many cups
Oh,
did this
really?
make? I do.
Mm.
I do, because I want to know, you know, somebody wants to know, well, how many cups is a serving? You know, you can't put, it makes 6 servings and a serving equals 1 portion. We have that on a lot of our recipes because we don't know that 1 serving equals 2 cups of this casserole, or, you
Yeah.
know, of a skillet meal. You're not slicing a skillet meal
Yeah.
like you would a lasagna, right? So
Yep.
just details on recipes are like probably the biggest thing for me, aside from how beautiful the photos look.
Yeah. Yeah, you're
So
right. That
I keep meticulous notes.
mhm. Mhm. Absolutely. I think that's really great advice too. So,
Yeah.
That's advice for developers. That's advice for photographers who are, developing recipes. So I think that's some
Right.
really great advice
Yeah.
that you just shared with us. So thank you so much, Amanda, for meeting with us and just sharing your insight and your experience, what it's been like for you as a blogger over the last couple of years, over the last several years. It's really exciting that your blog is still going. Your blog is still going because you've been able to hire people to kind of fill
Yes.
in and help. So we're excited to
Yes.
see how you continue to grow your blog and
Yeah.
what that looks like for you in the next couple
Thank
of
you.
years.
Well, and I've loved working with Pretty Focus. The talent that comes out of that course is just phenomenal. So
I'm
everyone's
so
photos are
happy to
so
hear that.
beautiful, and yeah, no, it's beautiful. Yeah.
That's
So
awesome. Well,
thank
thank
you
you,
for having me.
Amanda. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay.
Bye.